Now let's go ahead and add an example of event handling and states in React. And what I'm going to implement is allowing these department table lists to be sorted by department in ascending or descending order, or by mentor in ascending or descending order. And so the idea here is that I'm going to have click handlers on the department header and on the mentor header. And when you click on one of these things, it's going to call an event handler that's defined on the department list. So here's the idea. This department list class has to ultimately handle the event handler, and it's going to track the state of what order things are being sorted in. And then in the render, it's going to sort these departments based on whatever the sort order is. But the actual event that's going to occur is going to occur up here in the department header. So let's go ahead and start by defining an event handler in the department list. And so I'm going to declare a method called change order. And it's going to take an order param, and that's going to be the new sort order. And for now, I'm just going to log two things. So console.log this, and when the code is working, this will refer to the department list, and order. So that's the sort order that's coming in. Now, the way that I get this change order handler down to department header is by passing it in as a property on department header. So we're going to go ahead and I'll give it a click handler property, and the value is going to be my change order method. Now this isn't going to quite work. This will pass a function in, but the function, when I call it in the click handler, is not going to be bound to the right object. So this, if I were to call the method on my department list object, this inside the click handler would be bound to the department list. But if it's getting called in response to an event, this is going to be bound to something different. So let's see how that works. So in here, in my React component, in my table header, I'm going to go ahead and add on click, and I have to use this capitalization because once again, this is a JSX XML object thing instead of straight HTML. And then here, I'm going to go ahead and call this .props click handler. And I'm going to go ahead and pass in a column. Actually, I want to have two things here. I want to have column and order. Actually, I just want a column. I'm sorry. Just want a column. So click handler, I'm going to pass in the column, which in this case is department. And then I ended up with a parenthesis there that I need to get rid of. And then I'm going to do the same thing here for mentor. I'm going to call the click handler function that came in on the property. And this time I'm going to pass name as the column. So let's go ahead and compile that. Actually, I'm going to switch over to the dev server. So npm run dev. And I'm going to go to 8080. KYM. And let's look at the console here. Actually, I have an error. So change order is not defined. actually this dot change order, because it's a method on the object. This .props.click handler is not a function on department header.render. And that's because I misspelled handler here. Okay, so no errors. Now the click handler gets called when I start. So let's see what's happening. So this shouldn't actually be a call. This is actually a function that gets called. So what I want to do is I want to bind department and bind name to this function so that it automatically gets called when the thing, or it automatically gets passed in when the thing is called. So we're going to bind, and then the first argument is going to be the object that gets bound to this inside of here. So we'll use this, just pass it along, and then the same thing here. So now those two click handlers don't get called, they just get stored as functions on the onClick method of the table header. So let's go ahead and scroll down, and I'm going to click on department. So this is the department header, and then the column is department. And then I click on the mentor, and I get this is department header, and the column is name. So it's responding to clicks, but it's responding to clicks in the context of this department header object, not in department list. And so the trick is that before I pass this click handler in, I actually want to pre-bind it to this object. So that's going to bind this function to the current object and return a new function that's bound to this object that gets passed in on this .props.click handler. And then this will be the same object that's bound here, and then I'm rebinding it to the click handler function so that I can pass along the column. So let's save that, and then let's see what happens. I'm going to click on department, and now I see that it's bound correctly to department list. And still department list, I get department and name.